All right, it is top of the hour. I'm going to go ahead and let everybody in, and we'll get rolling here.
Beautiful is the plan that I'm going to be presenting to you. You pay taxes on the premium, and the flip side of that is the IRS makes those benefit payments.
All right, excellent. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us. We're here to talk about SharePoint and Teams, a complete solution for your organization, your workforces, and just your day to day in and through. We're going to touch on a variety of things today. We'll start out SharePoint, move to Teams, maybe end it with a little bit of Copilot. Lots of fun stuff to get through today. Now, this is all brought to you by a fantastic Microsoft partner, OnPar. We have both Donna Hall and Kevin Welsh here with us today. We're going to hear from them shortly and also throughout today's session as well. We are going to give it just about 2 to 3 minutes, though, for anybody else that's kind of maybe bouncing out of another meeting and joining us here. So we'll get started here shortly. Appreciate everybody's patience. All righty, everybody. It is 4 after top of the hour. We're going to go ahead and get rolling. To those of you who have just joined over the past couple of minutes, do want to say thank you for taking time out of your day to be here. We're going to talk all about Microsoft SharePoint and Microsoft Teams, really showcasing it as your complete all-in-one solution, your one-stop shop for all of your organization and work needs. Now, this is all brought to you today by a fantastic Microsoft partner, OnPar, okay, who's very well versed in everything that we're going to touch on today. We have both Donna Hall and Kevin Walsh here with us. I'm going to go ahead and throw it over to Donna to say hey real quick and introduce herself.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining. I apologize. I have a little bit of a cold today, so I sound a little nasally. But we appreciate you joining us for this in-depth dive into how Teams and SharePoint can can work in your environment. If you're already using it, great. If you need to optimize it, great. If you're not using it, well, that's okay too, because all the information here is going to help make better use of your environment with Teams and SharePoint. So we appreciate you joining us, and Dave, we'll let you get started.
All right, sweet. I want to throw it over to Kevin real quick. Kevin, if you want to say hi to everybody.
Yeah, sure thing. Hi, everyone. I'm a huge Microsoft fan, developer myself in the .NET framework and Power Apps and the Azure platform and whatnot, and just here to help anyone that has questions or concerns or tech struggles with Teams and SharePoint.
Excellent, Kevin. Thank you. So, essentially, what that means, what Kevin just said, is any curveball you guys can think of, feel free to just throw that sucker 100 miles an hour. Right?
Absolutely.
Nope. No question is too big or too small for us today. Look, it's not. I joke, but also in all seriousness, it's not every day that you do get to have firsthand direct access to an organization that just has a plethora of knowledge on these topics. So please, by all means, if something comes up, you're thinking about it, feel free to come off mic, or if you're mic shy, drop a question in the chat. Whatever works for you works for us. I'll also try to leave a couple minutes at the end in case anybody wants to save their questions and ask as we wrap up. So with that being said, let's go ahead and let's get rolling. Like I said, we're going to start off in SharePoint today, and then we'll kind of transition over to Teams, cover a bunch there, and then we'll take about 5-10 minutes and also look at Copilot as well. And then last couple minutes for questions. So that's kind of the overall agenda for today. Now, when we talk about SharePoint, for those of you that may be just a little bit unfamiliar with it, right? Maybe this is one of your first times really exploring what it's for, why you would use it. We're going to take a look at some of the main functionalities. Okay. We'll take a look at SharePoint sites. We'll discuss collaborative document management. We'll take a look at how you can take advantage of libraries and versioning. Take a look at document visibility, site permissions, who can access what, when, where, why, how, right? That's kind of the bulk of what we'll cover inside of here. Now, what you're looking at right now is my screen. This is my kind of a SharePoint homepage environment. Let's talk about what we're seeing right here. So first off, we've got a handful of SharePoint sites. Okay, think of SharePoint sites as a way to essentially silo either different teams or different projects that you're working on while still keeping everything, siloed, but what's the word I'm looking for? Organized, right? It's a good way to not just have, one place where you have 1,000 different things that you're working on. Your hierarchies get deeper and deeper and deeper, and trying to find information gets more difficult, right? The further those go. That's one of the great things about SharePoint, the fact that you can quickly spin up a site, get into it, and start getting to work. Now, what actually makes up a SharePoint site? Well, let's take a look at this one right here. Okay, so a handful of different things, right? If you notice off to the left-hand side, we've got kind of a nav bar that lets us jump between different portions of our site itself, everything from documents to pages, to some kind of additional pieces in this nav bar too. But also on the main screen, you can see a handful of things, everything from some of the different files to the recent activity. This is a great peek to see, hey, who is accessing what, who's making edits, who's making changes. I bugged so-and-so about getting in and updating that Excel spreadsheet. If you just come real quick to SharePoint, pretty quickly, you can come to see all activity and find out who has last accessed what, and then quickly click into it and then find out what changes have been made, right? So it's a good visibility piece. Now, as far as who has access, right, to a given SharePoint site, that's really easy to manage, and you can do it in a couple of different ways. So you can create groups, and a group is, exactly what it sounds like. It's a grouping of members, okay? Or you can do it by individual member. If we take a look at the top right here, come on over. We've got a handful of links. We can add pages, add an application. We'll touch on this in a little bit. Take a look at site contents, and we will get to that shortly. And you have site permissions. Now, site permissions shows you who has full control. Full control meaning that any of those members can add, edit, change, delete, completely restructure everything that's going on within your respective SharePoint sites, okay? Full control should really only be limited to those that absolutely need it. Now, limited control. This is one of those things where, you can essentially give somebody edit access, right? But they can't necessarily go in and completely restructure everything. Okay. You can also adjust those permissions as well. If you say, well, hey, so-and-so only needs read access. Say maybe this is a temp worker, right? Or maybe you're, I don't know, pull a vertical like construction, right? Construction companies a lot of times pull in other companies to help them work on, some big building project, and maybe they need them to have read access to certain documentation so that way they can all collaborate and get things done. Okay. And then when you're done allowing access, you can remove them. You can also set guest expiration. So this is where you don't necessarily have to go in and manually delete people. When you get them set up, you can have their access set for, call it 30, 60, 90 days. And then once that timer is up, their access to that site and the respective information is gone as well. Now, if I needed to add somebody, that's very simple. I can add to either the group that I'm looking for right now or to the site itself. If I want to take a look at adding members right here, I could type in the respective name that I'm looking for, save, and then we're good. So very simple to add, change, adjust, remove people. That is granted you have the appropriate permissions, okay? You'd have to have full control, right? You'd have to have owner permissions essentially. So if you are somebody that has SharePoint and maybe you're following along and you looked and you said, man, I can't make any of these changes, that's just because of your respective role, right? So just kind of keep that in mind. Now, I want to showcase this real quick because this is pretty neat. Say that you're an organization that has not created a SharePoint site yet, right? And you want to see, man, how complicated of a process is that really? I'm going to show you. We can do it in just a couple of clicks. So right up at the top here, if I click on create site, we've got two big options, all right? We've got a team site, and then we have a communication site. The intended purposes for both are stated pretty clearly down here for each, but I'll kind of summarize real quick. If you're creating a new site, say it's a team site, that is going to be best for those who are going to be working on documentation, working together. Maybe you want to add a bunch of applications and functionality, right? A team site is going to be the place for you to work with others and get things done. On the other hand, a communication site, this is going to be really best fit for, I'd say, larger organizations, okay, where you have quite a few employees, call it 500, 1,000, 10,000, right, so on and so forth. When you're managing that many people, it can be hard to get updates and directives and things of that nature pushed out to everybody And sometimes a single email just doesn't cut it. But if an email does not cut it, you can create a comm site. And then from there, you just make sure everybody has that site followed. The way you follow a site is just by clicking on the little star next to it. And then any updates that come through that site, they'll get a notification. They can take a look. And then it just kind of increases the odds that everybody's getting the messages that you need them to get. Now, what we'll do for today's purposes is we'll just take a look at creating a team site from scratch. And this is really nice because Microsoft does give you some out-of-the-box templates that you can start with. Now, a couple of them are based on, right, some very common scenarios: IT help desk, project management, my personal favorite, onboarding, right? Let's take a look at this template here together. Let's give it a name. We'll call it demo site. Now we could add a site description, tell people exactly what the site is for. There's our address. We'll go next. We'll say only members can access this site. Notice that you do have two different options when you initially set it up. And we'll create, I'm going to add Tyler to the site here. Find the template. We'll give it just a moment. And the reason I want to create one from scratch is only because I want to show you how quick and easy it is to make adjustments, personalize one of these things, add widgets, applications, and increase the functionality and collaboration within the site itself. There's so many great things that you can do, and a lot of things that are quite underutilized a lot of times. There's look, we get access to all these great tools. And sometimes we honestly have problems trying to figure out, like, man, what challenges can I tackle, right, with tools like these? If you're sitting there and you're going, gosh, SharePoint and Teams, I keep hearing about it, but I just don't know. Is it for us? What will we actually get out of it? Before we dive into kind of changing some of this site and kind of monkeying around a little bit, I'd like to rope in Donna. Donna, what kind of maybe specific challenges can you call back to where you guys have helped organizations kind of solve some of those, with it being either SharePoint or Teams, maybe both?
Yeah, it's just such a great question. But we have helped solve some pretty unique problems, and one of them that we helped a pharmacy company, a medical device company, um, solve. They were having problems. They have offices in Europe and the US, and we help facilitate the migration into the Microsoft stack of products. And with SharePoint, we helped them implement a company intranet. So one of their biggest problems was the siloed communication between their employees in Europe and their employees in the US. There was a big breakdown in communication. And so what we did was basically show them how they can improve communication in Teams, not only with chat and calling and all that other good stuff that comes with Teams, but also using Teams as a front end, SharePoint as the back end, and having more scalable solutions to help facilitate their growth for better collaboration on documents. And basically what was happening was they were in a very fast-paced growth mode, and they were creating a lot of the same documents in Europe and the US, contract-wise, that sort of thing, that they could have collaborated on and not spent double time. So by getting those documents into SharePoint and creating that greater collaboration, they were able to able to scale those solutions and keep things a little bit more streamlined.
No, that helps. That helps a ton. I mean, one of the things that we recently were talking to somebody about, and it kind of made me laugh a little, is they were going, man, we really love to get to understand how to use SharePoint and Teams better. They were taking all of their documents and just like you were talking about there, Donna, where everybody's kind of siloed and they're creating essentially double work for themselves.
Mm.
This organization was creating files but they were only storing them in their own respective OneDrives. And then
Right.
anytime maybe they need to send them to somebody, they email it, or they share access. But it's just kind of a weird way to do things when in all reality you can create a SharePoint site, add everybody to it, and then whatever documents and things like that you want everybody to be able to work on, you can store it inside of that site. And then if there are certain portions of documentation that not everybody needs access to, you can limit the access, right? It's just a much simpler way to further collaboration. It's a one-stop shop, right? Like people don't have to bug others for things. Hey, can you email me this, that, XYZ? Like all those little steps take time and they eat into the workflow. So
Right.
um,
Well, and so many people are used to the old shared drives. I mean, if you're older than probably 40 years old, or maybe even 35, you cut your teeth on the C drive or the J drive or the G drive on a
yep,
on-premise server, and those have all gone away because so many people are using SaaS applications, and so that collaboration kind of went away with it because that shared information went away, and so this is a way to get that back.
100%. Could not agree more. So let's take a peek here. Let's see what we've got going on. So this spun up just kind of a demo site for us. Notice we've got a couple of different tabs here serving a couple of different purposes. We'll come on back to the home page here. And now this is loading just a little bit better. So we can see, looks kind of similar to what we saw initially with my personal SharePoint site. But if this is something we needed to make changes to edit, it's very, very simple. There's that little edit icon that we click on, and then notice that everything that you're seeing is a segment, it's a widget on the page, right? It's a web part. So if you needed to add additional web parts, you can see the top available right here. We can see all. If you wanted to add some sort of imagery or you want to kind of section off, right, different portions, right down here, I can add additional sections. I can go with a 3-column, right? You can very quickly, you don't need to be the part I'm trying to point out here with the customization availability is you don't have to be a coding Bill Gates mathematician wizard here, right? To create a really nice SharePoint site that's not only appealing visually, but is also easy for you and your team to navigate and work inside of. So I'm just going to save that draft real quick, even though we didn't add anything. And now I want to talk about how we could increase functionality inside of a SharePoint site. Couple of ways you can do it. The quickest way is coming down here to, we'll let this load. Okay. Here's what's neat about adding apps to SharePoint, your respective SharePoint sites. We'll take a look at the classic experience here real quick. And here we go. So there are quite a few from Microsoft that are essentially baked in that serve a couple of different purposes. We'll actually dive a little bit more into the document libraries here shortly. But document library, what's for? So that way you create, manage, collaborate on files and things of that nature with other team members, right? You can create custom lists so you can track and organize, different work, different projects. Those are customizable. Tasks is a great one, right? So you can manage different project tasks with features like, things like timelines, subtasks. You can even add things like due dates, okay, and have people be notified, right, assigned to a respective task, and you get a little notification when it's due, etc. So that way everybody stays on the same page. You can never go wrong with a calendar, right? Should you need something outside of maybe your Outlook. Announcements, that's a good one, right? If maybe you're an organization that isn't quite large enough to warrant a separate comm site, but you still want to make sure that announcements get out to everybody and they're visible for more than just a single little notification in their email inbox. That's a great application. Discussion board, it's kind of like an open forum. Think of something like a more appropriate, it's business Reddit, let's go with that. um, Links is a good one. If there are frequently accessed links that everybody is using on a regular basis that you want everybody to have just kind of a quick one-stop shop for, you can drop those in. Surveys, there's picture libraries, there's a wiki page library, and this is just what's baked in, okay? There is definitely more than what you see right here. If I come on back, you can see right down here, popular apps in the SharePoint store. There are a ton of third-party applications that you could integrate as well that serve a variety of purposes, right? Some are very specific to other solutions and softwares, right? Others are more kind of engineered to solve specific pain points or tasks or projects, okay? Um, since we're talking about it, Donna, what do you think feature-wise between Teams and SharePoint are probably the most underutilized, and how can companies kind of leverage some of those things better?
So I think there's a couple of things that I would say that are underutilized, and that's the meeting whiteboards. You don't see a lot of people using those, but when you're in a office, you use a whiteboard quite a bit. It does make things a lot easier to explain sometimes. So I think that's a great feature that's in the Teams. Also think the integrated apps. So some of the apps now that are being integrated into SharePoint are amazing. Um, and you're able to get things in one place. For example, we have a piece of software that we resell, that we provide phishing simulations and training, and that app just did an interface into Teams. So you get these weekly micro trainings that you can do, and it comes into your email, and you click on them, takes you to the dashboard, and you do your little 10-minute training, and your secure score goes up, blah blah blah. Well, now that's integrated. It's integrated into Teams, where people are living and breathing, and they're using Teams a lot more. And I think what Microsoft and some of these forward-thinking applications are trying to do is basically get some of that clutter out of email, and
Hmm.
get that information over into Teams so that it's stored. You can find it a lot easier. And now that's just one example. So Power BI, obviously, Microsoft's doing all their integration with that, but just being able to use those apps in one place without having to leave Teams, I think is going to make a big difference.
Couldn't agree more. Very well said. Excellent. Perfect. Thank you, Donna. Now, something else I want to kind of highlight. We talked about the document libraries, right? So let me kind of backtrack here a little bit. And there we can see there's that demo site. Actually, two things here I want to kind of touch on real quick. So notice up at the very top, we do have this search bar. The way that the search bar is going to function depends on kind of where exactly you're viewing from. So if we're from the main page, right, the search bar is going to allow us to search for anything inside of all of our respective SharePoint sites. Okay. If we were clicked into a specific site, it would search within that site, everything within that site. Okay. Now, this is, if you guys are probably used to the search functionalities right now, at this point, at least you would hope so, but it is convenient. There is some AI kind of built into it, some predictive features, right? Like trying to guess what you're going to type next, or essentially suggesting based off of what people are most frequently accessing. Here you can find everything from sites, files, people, etc. Okay. Now, if we get back into our demo site here real quick, we're going to add a new document library. Give this just a second to load. We'll just go with a blank library here just to start. Because what I want to highlight real quick is some of those collaboration features. We're going to add in a new Word document, okay, to this library here. And I just want to show you how nice this is. We can already see Copilot is over here. We'll get to Copilot in a little bit. Like Copilot's already like, hey, what are you doing here? What do you need? What do you want? We'll chat with Copilot in a bit. But here's the great thing. When you're working inside of SharePoint, okay, the same thing is going to apply when you're doing it via Teams. SharePoint is the backbone of Teams. Okay, I don't know if I've necessarily pointed that out yet. I'll try to re-emphasize that a little bit more when we get into Teams here in just a couple of minutes. But everything that you do inside of Teams is stored in SharePoint. SharePoint is the main, think of it as the main storage facility, right, for all of your organization's documentation. But in this specific scenario that we're talking about here, I spun up a new document library. Inside of that library, I opened up a Word document. I just typed something in, and then I'm just going to go ahead and close it. Now, here's what's nice. We can see the name of the document, even though I didn't name it, just saves it as it's got like a placeholder title. We can see it was when it was modified last, okay, and who it was modified by. Now, if I click back into it, even though I didn't save, we can see that everything I typed in here is still available. It's still viewable. Now, the reason is because when you're working inside of SharePoint, and because it's cloud-based, right, everything auto-saves. We've all had those nightmare scenarios. You do a bunch of work, you step away, maybe your computer refreshes, closes all of the applications and everything you had on your computer. When it reboots, you go, oh, wow, great, I didn't save. If you are working in this type of environment, those nightmare scenarios no longer occur, okay? Everything that you work so hard on, put time into, is going to be there when you get back. And then what's nice as well is anybody else that has access to this respective document can also just as easily and quickly come in, make changes, add to it, right, if they need to, and then you can see who it was modified by last still. Now, another thing is, and we'll get into this. I don't want to get ahead of myself here. So give me just a second. Back out of there. But you can also do things inside of your add comments, when people make changes, etc. But back to SharePoint. Notice inside of our library, you've got a handful of columns here. Now, the reason that you would add more columns is if, you want to add things like approval reviews, some columns as to whether or not something's been looked at lately. You want to add dates and times. There's a variety of things that you can add here just to help essentially give everybody a better overview of what's going on, what's been worked on, etc. Now, what we'll do is let me make sure I'm not missing anything that I wanted to cover here. I'm pretty sure we're good there. Version management. We just kind of talked about versioning a little bit, the fact that everything saves, it auto saves for you. I could get into that. I don't think that's the best use of our time. I'm just making sure I didn't miss anything here. Content approval, that gets a little bit too weedy. Okay, great. Let's go ahead and do this. Since we've talked a little bit about SharePoint, let's switch gears since we're a little over the halfway mark and talk about Teams. Okay, excellent. Let me do. Okay, perfect. SharePoint is your backbone. If you have SharePoint in Teams, where you're most likely going to be doing a majority of your work is inside of Teams itself. And I'm going to show you why. So let me make this full screen. Off to the left over here, you're going to notice I've got a bunch of chats. Some are one-on-one, some are group chats. Okay. Think of those the very, very, very much akin to like sites, the way that you can add people and remove people from groups, right? One-on-one chats, those are just one-on-ones. If you need to spin up a new chat, that's a very simple, easy thing to do, right? You just click on new, look for who you're trying to message. You can add a couple of people, and then you can rename the chat. You can essentially have chats segmented for different projects or things that you have going on. Now, off to the left here, we see our respective teams, and notice the teams that you're seeing here looks very similar to the sites that you were seeing inside of SharePoint. Because again, SharePoint is the backbone of Teams. So what that means is all of our files, okay, we can access here inside of Teams. We can go in and we can also manage access from Teams. So if I need to add somebody, if I need to remove someone, if I need to adjust their permissions, okay, for either a respective folder, or if I need to get even more granular and do it at the individual file level, I can do that as well. If you have owner permissions inside of Teams, you really do get to stipulate and control who, when, where, and how, okay? Now, there's some other security pieces we could get into from a broader Microsoft 365 perspective that can contribute to some of those factors. But just inside of Teams here, really quickly, that's how you make those changes. It's a couple of clicks away, and then you're off to the races. Now, you also have calendar functionality the same way that you would see it available inside of, say, your Outlook, okay? This is synced with your Outlook calendar, actually. So any additions, changes, new proposed meetings that get thrown on here, you'll also see in your Outlook. If I were to create something new, I can do that here, and I'd see it in both places. Now, you also have calling functionality, but let me kind of make sure we're tracking on what I mean by calling. With the just standard Teams calling, what that means is that any other individual that has Microsoft Teams, I can call that individual, right? You can also host a call from a group chat, right? So if you're in a group chat, you can click on, essentially host a meeting, call everybody in. It'll give them a notification that, hey, you're being called into a meeting. But you can go one-on-one. You can see your call history, your missed, your incoming, outgoing, etc. Now, if you have Teams phone, what that would mean is you would have all the same functionality, the ability to contact other Teams members, and you would get a dedicated phone number. That dedicated phone number could be used for both inbound and outbound calling. So you would have a phone number, a dial pad. You can have a voicemail set up, so that way people can leave voicemails. I would argue, and Donna or Kevin, feel free to correct me if you disagree, but I would argue that if you're an organization that does a lot of inbound, outbound calling in general, and you're using some external provider, call it Cisco, RingX, or WebEx. There's a couple others that come to mind. I would take a look at what that is costing you and take a look at how much Teams phone would cost. I believe it's only it's anywhere from like $5 to $11 a user, depending on a couple of factors. And some of that pricing can, of course, be reduced with commitments and some promotional things. There's always something going on, but you could have everything that you do be again in one place, managed through one provider, through one vendor, and any support you need. Guess what? You could reach out to Microsoft, or if you're doing what Microsoft recommends everybody to do, which is to get their licensing through a Microsoft partner. A lot of times when you're getting your licensing and things like that directly from a partner, you're also getting the benefit of support from that partner, right? So that way you don't play this giant telephone game with Microsoft and hopefully get an answer in 5 days. You can just call Donna or Kevin at 2 a.m. and they're right there. They're ready to help you. Right, Donna? Anything you would add to that?
Well, you're half right. Um, so Teams, if you want the calling, Teams itself, and if you want the line, if you don't want to go through like another service, if you don't want to go through an AT&T or one of those for the lines, it's $15 per user per month. So yeah, but that gives you the calling plan, so which is still significantly cheaper than most of the rest. I think Ring Central, the comparable version of Ring Central is like $30 per user per month. So it really just depends on what the needs are for the organization. But yes, if you go through a partner, there is a basic level of support that we offer, but we will open up a ticket with Microsoft on your behalf if you don't want to pay extra for that support. So yeah, so it's most people do go through a partner because they don't want to work directly with Microsoft, but you don't necessarily have to.
No, absolutely. And Kevin, I see you came off mic. Is there anything you wanted to add there?
Oh, not necessarily. I think Donna got it.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Just wanted to double check, make sure. Great. All right. So we touched on chat functionality, the calling, the calendar, and then of course you can see how everything can be organized inside of a respect. You have your teams, and then you have your folders, your different sections inside of your team, and then all of your files, everything you need is located right here for you. And then right up at the top, you can pin, your most frequently accessed documentation. And then also, like we kind of highlighted over in SharePoint applications, you can have applications added right inside of your teams as well, right? A lot of there's a handful that are baked in, and then there are others where they're third party. Okay. All right. Now, the other big one, since we've got just about 15 minutes here, is I want to talk about applications. Copilot. Okay. A lot of us have heard about Copilot at this point. A lot of us have maybe played with ChatGPT. But what we hear more often than not is, gosh, hey, it sounds fun, it sounds cool, but how are people even using Copilot, right? Is it worth the money? Does it make sense? I'll throw a couple of things out there before I show you. But the latest Microsoft report is that those that are investing in AI in general are seeing an ROI of about I think it was like 3.1 or 3.4x on investment. And the reason that is, some of that can be attributed to some of the AI data products. But if we're just talking about Copilot, Copilot itself doesn't do anything on its own. It all depends on your interactions with it. But if you're able to interact with it correctly, what Copilot can do is save you a lot of minutes, sometimes tens of minutes, sometimes half hours. Okay. And all that time cumulative throughout your day, throughout your work week adds up, allows you to focus on what's truly important. So that way you can do the impactful work and you're not bogged down by the kind of menial detail, micro oriented stuff that, it just kind of takes a lot out of you. So let me show you what I mean. Right now, the whole time we've been going, Copilot's actually been working in the background. There is Copilot. What we're going to do is ask Copilot to summarize the meeting so far. Now, the reason organizations love this feature is because a lot of times you have a bunch of meetings and then you'll designate somebody to be, hey, can you take notes and action items for this, and then draft it up, make sure it looks good, and then disseminate this out to everybody that maybe wasn't able to make the meeting, or as a recap for those that did attend. If you have Copilot, you have now made that individual's life so much easier. Okay. And honestly, this is a much more efficient process and way to go about it. And here's why. Within seconds, Copilot spat back a summarization of our meeting so far. And then also notice there's like these little footnotes. Now, these are kind of funny, right? Because you're like, well, what is this? Well, this is where I'd like to point out that Copilot does not inherently know anything. Okay. Copilot knows what it has access to. And this is a great example of that. Because this meeting's being recorded, Copilot has access to the transcript. Okay. And because it has access to the transcript, it's able to pull from that and then in return give us a summarization. So it's not just coming up with all of this out of thin air, right? It's pulling it from the transcript. It's not giving it word by word because we asked for a summarization. So there's one of the great features is it's not just listing. It is going through, taking into account context, what's being discussed, and compiling it in a manner that's kind of more digestible, right, than say just a raw transcript itself. Now, you could also be a little more specific in your prompting and ask it to give specific action items, or you could ask, hey, please list anything that was mentioned about Project X. Here's the other great thing. It doesn't just work during a meeting. You can also do this same thing post meeting, as long as the meeting transcript is still live and available, okay, inside your organization, you can interact with it via Copilot. So this is one of the ways that organizations are utilizing some AI functionality, but also you can use it inside of Teams a couple of different ways, right? You really, the way you interact with Copilot across the suite is a little bit different. Okay, and let me kind of explain what I mean by that real quick. For example, inside of our Teams meeting, I'm not going to ask Copilot inside of here to spit out, an Excel spreadsheet or create a PowerPoint. Okay, if you notice, whenever you're working with Copilot in the respective apps, it'll tell you what it's there for. Okay, so right here lets us know, okay, great, this is what I can do. Now, inside of Teams, a couple of different ways. If we're looking at it inside of, say, one-on-one chats. This is another summarization feature. So anything that's been talked about inside of a chat, you can pull from it. If you're looking for something specific, like I was a couple of months ago, here's a great example why maybe that Links app could be a good ad right inside of your team's environment or inside of SharePoint, because I'm one of those guilty individuals that somebody throws them a link and then months later I need it, don't remember where it was. Instead of scrolling around though and painstakingly eyeballing it, I just asked Copilot, hey, find this, and bam, it spat it right out for me. Off to the races. Saved me a handful of minutes, kept me in my workflow, and I got done what I needed to and moved on to the next task, right? That's one of the benefits. Now, if we interact with Copilot inside of its own chat window, like you're seeing right here, this is a little bit different of an interaction, okay? Because now we're not just talking about summarizing. We can do a handful of other tasks here. So I want to run through a quick scenario where we can start off with a topic that we know nothing about and get to about an 80% finished product. Okay. Let's say someone comes to you and says, hey, I need you to present on time management techniques. And you go, okay, great. Sounds good. I will get that done. You know nothing about time management. You just know I show up on time. I leave when it's time to go. That's it. So let's do this. We'll interact with Copilot and say, please list the top 5 most popular time management techniques from the web. Okay. Now I'll talk about prompting just a little bit here while it's generating a response. Notice I was kind of specific. I use my manners in case, AI takes over the world, and not anytime soon, but it's a peace of mind thing. So I said, please, and then I gave it a specific number, right? And I told it what topic I'm looking for, and I gave it a location. This is important to note. Copilot inside of your Microsoft environment has access to everything you have access to, okay? And it also has access to the web. You can disable the access to the web via right down here, okay? This is where you can integrate some plugins. Plugins, think of very much akin to like apps, all right? But this is specific to Copilot, but you could enable, disable. Now, security is one of those big things real quick, right? Because Copilot has access to everything inside of an organization, or at least everything that an individual has access to, right? The access marries up is what I'm trying to say. If I have access to everything, so does Copilot. If I only have access to some things, Copilot also only has access to those same some things, right? So if you're thinking about integrating Copilot, discount double check your security protocols, kind of your processes for document management, and make sure that's buttoned down, okay? Now, with that being said, we were specific. This is the result we got off of just looking at it. I like it. And here it's telling us where it's pulling the information from. 2 different sources. One looks like it's from kind of a more reputable source. We'll give this a second to load. University of St. Augustine for Health Sciences. And then this one's from Timely. Okay, I haven't heard of Timely. If I wanted it to ignore from this source, I could state that, restate my prompt, be specific, say, hey, only pull from United or University of St. Augustine Health Services. Okay, and then it would regenerate the list. The big point there is, if you don't like what Copilot gives you the first time, ask it again or ask it in a different manner. The more specific you are, the more context you provide, the better result that you can expect. Copilot is not going to magically do anything for you. It's definitely, to a degree, limited by your ability to provide it a good prompt to work with. Think of it like Tyler has used this example in the past, and I love it. If you were to go ask a Tyler to make you a peanut butter and jelly and you gave him no directions, who knows what kind of result you would get back? You kind of want to treat Copilot the same way. You want to give it instructions, guardrails. When you do that, you're more than likely going to be happy with what it provides. Now, we knew nothing about this topic. Let's take that information. We go, okay, great. This is a good start. and let's go drop this into a Word document. Now, important to note, when you're working with text, okay, with Copilot, please make sure that it is plain text. If you include active hyperlinks, Copilot's going to say, hey, sorry, I can't work with this type of information. Even though these aren't active, just getting rid of them for cosmetic purposes. And that was a follow-up question from Copilot. Okay, now is this enough to create a presentation on? Probably not, but what we can do here is we'll highlight it, and now we'll work with Copilot inside of Word, and we're going to make changes. Now, when we click on Make Changes, it gives us a prompt text box, so we can, again, instruct what we want to have happen here. I'm going to say, please expand on the content to fill 2 pages. And now it'll start drafting. Now, there was another option there where it said auto rewrite. Auto rewrite you could use if you're just looking to have different variations of the information. It'll kind of change some of the wording, some of the sentence structure, but it's not going to add, right? That's the important takeaway. Whereas here, we used the make changes option, said I need more based on what we have. We'll get rid of the top, and look at this. It even provided some headers, some font changes, right? As far as sizing is concerned, this is very neat. This is very organized. And we have 3 pages instead of 2, but hey, if I adjusted font size, you could make an argument. This is 2 pages. So we would save this document, and then we would come into, because remember, we need to present on this topic. We'd come into PowerPoint, interact with Copilot, and we're going to say, hey, create a presentation from a specific file. Important to note that the file that you want Copilot to work with inside of PowerPoint, that file needs to be inside of your Teams environment, right? Inside of your SharePoint, your Teams. If it's local, it can't help you, okay? It's got to be in the cloud. So we'll go ahead, the time management documentation, and within seconds, what we're going to find is a handful of slides with some imagery, some speaker notes, and about 80% of ultimately what we need. Okay, remember a couple minutes ago, knew nothing about time management methods, techniques. And now I have a title slide and an agenda, an intro, and then a breakdown of individual techniques. Now, are there some changes I would like to make? Yeah, for sure. Okay, some of the imagery. If I want overall design changes, that's what the designer is for. But now I can spend my time on what's actually impactful, maybe some minor aesthetic changes, some cosmetics, and then really spend my time focused on the speaker notes. Now, what's great is if you're having writer's block, what could you do? You could take sections of text, drop them into either Copilot inside of Teams or inside of Word, and have it help you reframe, reword whatever you're trying to talk about. My personal favorite for text, my favorite prompt to give Copilot is please rewrite in varied but simple language. That prompt right there will cut through some of the, what I like to call AI lingo. Copilot, just AI in general, the initial text it provides, you can almost always tell that it was generated by AI. But when you give it that prompt, it does make it more human-like, I guess you could say. But the takeaway is I'll spend my time where it's actually worthy. And then maybe within an hour or so here, I'll have this project done. I knew nothing all of 5 minutes ago. Now, if I wasn't talking between these steps, this honestly could have gone even quicker. So there's kind of a little Copilot teaser. with that being said, I want to ask Donna another question here. We've talked a whole bunch about SharePoint and Teams, and then gotten a little bit about Copilot. Donna, what are maybe just some best practices you can leave with everyone that you would recommend for kind of maximizing their ROI on these different products?
I think if we do standardization and of the structure and the governance of that. So, and what I mean by that is a lot of people just turn SharePoint on or they turn Teams on and they just let people start using it. They don't establish any policies. And then, documents are shared outside of the organization because that's what it's designed for, and you want them to use the tools that they've been given. But you also need to protect that data and protect your network when you're sharing those documents. Don't let them share those documents without an end date, that sort of thing. And if you aren't going to put some policies in place for the governance and enforce the policies, then you're going to have to do it manually, which is going to be way too difficult. So you need to kind of realize what's that structure going to be and how you're going to manage all of the features that they come with. So that's the most important thing. I guess two would be just the cleanup of data. A lot of people just keep everything for years and years and years, and as you begin to store that in the cloud, it becomes a little bit more costly. And if you have a regular cadence of where you or your team leads or your managers or someone is in charge of cleaning up data, then that could save you quite a bit of money over time. So it's just the little things that people sometimes overlook um, when they're doing an implementation. And Kevin, I'm sorry if I jumped in there, but if you have something you want to add, that would be great.
Yeah, you kind of covered the one that I was going to try to hammer on too. I think it's really important, right? All these tools. I mean, you did a great job presenting, David, in an hour, a tremendous amount of functionality. There's even more than what we saw, and there's
Yeah.
there's no there's no substitute for taking another hour or two to learn just a little bit more about what everything does, and then design things out before you implement them, right? So we saw you spin up a SharePoint site in 30 seconds. If you were just brainstorming and all the data that you generate in that brainstorming is garbage, then by all means spin it up, work with it, great. But if you're organizing, if you're organizing the data structure of your company, it's worth building out a smart architecture, having standard operating procedures, and slowing this whole process down, thinking through that architecture and then building it.
100%. Very well said, Kevin. Could not agree more. Right. Yes, we definitely covered a lot of ground, and
We
you're
did.
right. In theory, can you spin up a new site in 30 seconds and just kind of take it? You sure can. Is it the best
Should
way to go
you?
about it?
Maybe,
Probably
maybe
not.
not. Maybe not. Absolutely, right? So, and yeah.
No, 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 no. It's a great call out. And Rick actually brought up a good point in the chat. He said, hey, you can use Copilot to manage document relevance and archiving.
Sure.
We didn't even get to the Copilot functionality on SharePoint, right? Like,
Right.
guys, I know Kevin just said we could spend another hour. We could easily spend another 3 to 4 hours
We could
in
spend
all these
days,
respective
really. Right.
apps. Yeah, I mean,
Right.
really could. But to go really in depth into each one of these, the functionality this is not an exhaustive list by any stretch of the imagination. There's so many great things inside of all these products. So if you're someone who is just thinking about moving to the Microsoft suite, I would definitely, I'd recommend taking this a step further, right? If you have questions, okay, that's exactly what Donna and Kevin are happy to address. There is a poll question that I went ahead and threw out there. I know we're just a couple minutes over, but for anybody that has any questions that they didn't ask yet, this is a great time to do that. If you do not have questions, we really appreciate everybody's time today.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. Let's see, Rick, is this recorded and available for download? Rick, yes, this is recorded. If you reach out to Donna, are you able to drop your email?
Yes, we're going to put it on our YouTube channel as well. So,
Oh, awesome.
I can drop that in the chat as well. 1 second. Let me grab that.
Perfect. So there's Donna's email. So if anybody has something that, they want to reach out to that they didn't ask today, you've got that. Also, Rick, that's if you reach out to Donna, she can get you the recording or send you the YouTube location.
There's
Make sure
the YouTube location, and we'll have that up probably sometime tomorrow.
and don't forget to like and subscribe, right? It's YouTube. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Yes.
Smash that bell.
That's it. Too good. Too good. Awesome. All righty, everybody. Well, if
Thanks,
nobody
everybody.
has questions again, we appreciate you. Have a great rest of the week. And don't be shy if you need something. Those that are looking for more information, we'll talk soon. Thank you guys again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.